Hi, everybody. It's your two big sisters, and I'm Sukhmani for those of you that haven't been watching.
I'm Elizabeth.
And we are back after, I would say, a decently long pause, but we weren't not working. We were working on the podcast from a different angle.
Yeah, and I think for us, the goal obviously for this is to grow it and see it succeed and see it reach as many people as we can. And that also takes us recording, but then there's other parts to it, like figuring out the marketing of it, the different behind the scenes stuff that I think goes into projects like these that we weren't even really aware of before we started. So it's been an interesting process behind the scenes as well.
It's been very exciting, though, so please stay tuned. But for today's episode, and I know we're being kind of vague, but we're going to tie this in at the very end. We wanted to focus a little bit more about mentorship and what that's meant to us. So, Liz, what is mentorship to you, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think something that's come up in our different conversations is there's kind of two parts to it. It's one, actually receiving mentorship, and that could be shown in a lot of different ways. And then there's actually giving mentorship. And I don't think we're at that stage yet in life where we have necessarily all the skills and tools to do that. But I think we do it in parts in different portions of our lives. For example, with family, with friends, I think you could be giving advice, and that's a type of mentorship.
I can agree with that. And it's kind of weird because everything you said, I agree with. There's such a difference in being a mentor versus mentee, and there's different things you get out of it. It's very much like a cycle of you've received it. It obviously helped you grow in some capacity, shape, or form, and now you have the opportunity to give it back. So you're putting in the seeds into like the pot that was once put into you. This is so random, but it initially started off as like when I asked certain people when I was like interviewing for internships, and this is not a self plug into employment, but it was always interesting because they always wanted me to ask about mentorship opportunities and like if they have that at said company or like said role. And obviously, when I wasn't working and it was my first internship, I didn't really understand the importance of it. But even through my sorority, having an advisor that I saw as a mentor, or like in clubs, and I know that you've had the same, it becomes something that now I ask. It's
Yeah.
important, you know?
Yeah, and I think this ties really well to actually some of the research that I do for my current role around career development. And but I think more specifically having that mentorship opportunities, I think you get to learn so much. And we've been talking about is just having support that allows you both to see what you're doing well, but also what you're doing wrong and getting more ideas. Sometimes, especially with these types of projects, there's no clear way of how to go about it, and there's no right way either. It gets a little bit confusing at times, and you're like, okay, we can keep posting, and that could get some engagement, but what else could we
Mhm.
be doing? And sometimes
Yeah.
we might not have the answers. And so, having advisors and mentors to be able to have those answers who can get creative because they see it from a different angle, I think that's been really beneficial for us.
I know this is such a funny example to me, but I think also to your point, there needs to be a balance. As a mentee, as somebody that's receiving it, I love when my mentors are engaged to an extent where it's not that I feel like I'm harassing them. I feel like there becomes a fine line where you feel like you can't even ask,
Hmm.
but you don't want to be micromanaged. So how do you balance the need for check-ins periodically? Do you feel micromanaged? Like what kind of language do you need them to be like engaging with you with? And I think the best mentor I've ever had, and I hope maybe if you're listening, Letty, I've really benefited. For context, it was when I was chapter president of my sorority. I felt like I'd never had an advisor growing up, or rather mentor to that extent, that saw me for who I was as a person, but also like knew the objectives of like what I had to get done and like wanted to support me in both ways, not
Yeah.
just one. And that's kind of why I wanted to take the role. Once I met her, everybody before I took the role was like, "You've seen the past. Like, why do you want to do this?" And it was more or less joining a sorority is like such an experience in itself, you know. But it really resonated with me. Like there were older girls that felt like sisters to me as an older sibling, and it's funny because I think this whole common theme of the podcast is like sisters, like people that bring you up. And I think that I never had that growing up, and I was such a confused person joining the sorority, and definitely did not have it figured out when I left. But it was people along the way that took me under their wing, tried to support me, and whether it be school or the certain people were better at career related stuff or just socially were leading me down a certain path. And I think because of that, now if I can give back, I know, like you said, we're not at the stage
Yeah.
at all where we can do that completely, but I want to do that. There's something special about people believing in you for who you are and helping you see that confidence and ability, and then you realizing it and you putting it to somebody else.
Well, actually, maybe I take back some of what I said. I do think that we can be mentors. I don't think, and I think I'm comparing it to the mentors that we have now, is
Mm.
that I don't think we're at that level yet. And I think I'm just striding to be at that level, but I don't think that we have the full skill set to be able to. But
Yeah.
I do definitely think that we can be mentors, especially like if you decide to go back and be an advisor, or you are being an advisor right now. I think that you can do those things, and I think that you have the opportunity to do those things. I think for those, for example, I was thinking in a career aspect. Like I don't think I
Yeah.
could be anyone's advisor because I'm the farthest thing from having it figured out. So I
At
think
the moment, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. And I think as I learn more and as I have the answers, but even I was having actually a conversation this weekend with a person who was saying, I'm not actually sure if I want to use my degree for anything. And I was like, oh, like, have you looked into X, Y, and Z? And she was like, oh, like I did a little bit, but not really. And we kind of had a conversation about, using LinkedIn and how to reach out to people. And because I've been doing that for so long now, that's kind of an obvious thing for me, but it's not as obvious for
Mhm.
others. So I think providing advice in that sense is really good, especially if you have that experience. And something else that I wanted to talk to you about is whether you're harassing your advisors or not, or your mentors. I think it does
Yeah,
come with you have to set boundaries from the beginning. I think
true.
something that again we've done is, what is the space for? Like what are we actually trying to get out of it? Is it,
Mhm.
you know, X, Y, or Z? And just being very clear with that. Like, do you want to talk consistently, like on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis? Obviously, that usually isn't the case. Or do
Yeah.
you want to check in every 3 to 4 months when you're kind of like, those big ticket items? So just figuring out those things, I think is very, very beneficial.
Yeah, and I think it definitely boils down to like whatever you're doing. It's not even what you need help with. It's if you are in a high output role or experience or something that like requires more guidance, or but you might like have an advisor or a mentor or like I don't know, a boss or a manager, a colleague, whatever. And they might not be like an expert in like what you're doing, but like somebody that you're paired up with or somebody that like you have like gone out of your way to like, become in contact with might be the better person to ask. So I think it kind of boils down, but that's I guess it's funny because that's something that often needs to be tweaked. Like your first go around is never your finite, this is it, we're going to leave it. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I think maybe we're just at the point also where obviously with the podcast, like our whole intention here is to acknowledge that we don't have the right experience at the moment, but as time goes on, as like months, days, years, whatever, through this podcast, we learn more about ourselves. We want to share it to help. We're trying to connect with people on the podcast, bring them on to share their experience. And I don't know, I think mentorship's beautiful. So fair.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. And I think something that we were kind of alluding to at the beginning and have been throughout the episode is the fact that we actually started our own advisory board. And we have two fantastic people that joined the advisory board because they wanted to. And it actually wasn't even our idea originally. So credit
No.
goes to to Sandy fully, because now we have something absolutely fantastic that number one, we can get more engagement from, but also just have that support that I think we've needed the past few months that we didn't necessarily have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And initially, as always, this podcast, like the intention is like still, grounded in the whole idea of we're just here to have these conversations. Like I enjoy talking to Liz, and I think these conversations there is more to it. And both of those people were guests that we were going to bring on, like in their own respective like expertise, but their advice to us and also just the way they engaged with us, there was much more to it. Like they couldn't just be guests that we'd have on, And what Liz said, they fully volunteered their time. This is something that they want to do. We didn't even ask them like that. And it goes to show, again, when somebody believes in you, and whether it be your idea, you as a person, your role in life, whatever, they will put as much into it, and there's a cycle of paying it forward. And so that's our objective here, and we're just lucky enough to have people that believe in the same thing but have better experience, and in the sense where they can help guide us where we want to go.
Yeah, and I think something else that's come up is the idea of having like hype woman, and that well, obviously our friends and potentially our family and all these things might be watching this, and that's great. But something that Suk and I are always talking about is how do we actually reach that wider audience, the people that don't know us, the people that just can reach naturally. And the fact that we had, two people, obviously Suk knew them personally, and I've met them throughout these conversations. but they're so supportive of what we're trying to do here, and they believe in the vision so much that it's so nice to have that from people, again, who don't really know us that well. So they believe more in the product than anything else, and I think that goes to
It's
show.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah,
It's also one thing that I've really enjoyed about this podcast and just also engaging with them is that they fully like they are killing it in their
yeah,
careers and in their lives. Their moms, like they have their life going on and they can acknowledge that both Liz and I are in our 20s and we're figuring our life out. And it's really cool to hear them help us come and pump our ideas to fruition, but
yeah,
also not putting another added layer of you need to put 100% on this. Like there's an
yeah,
idea of like realism that's added to
yeah.
it. So
No, and I
it's been
think
helpful.
Yeah, and I think both of us appreciate it because, again, we both have a lot going on. And something that I think we've always tried to do with this is not make this feel like homework or not make this feel like a big task at the end of the day. And if we are able to record and put it out, then that's great. But if we don't because other things in life come up,
Like
then that's
life
also okay.
happens.
Exactly. And we'd rather
Yeah.
put out things that we're actually interested in than just talking to talk. And I'm sure at some points we'll have those episodes as well. But as of
Yeah.
right now, we want to be intentional. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that is a perfect conclusion to our episode, but also to give you guys a little bit of an update and snippet to what's coming.
Yeah.
Stay tuned and yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye guys.